I'm Joe Benavides, and I'd like to start by thanking you all for giving St. Ed's and Friends Consulting Group the opportunity to come out here to the 2012 World Business Expo. We're here today to explain to you future investors how and why you should conduct business in Brazil. Alongside me are my colleagues, starting off with Karan Novoa, who will be covering the business culture of Brazil, as well as Randy Patterson, who will be giving a brief description of the business geography in the country. Stephanie Mejia will be giving a market overview. Guillermo Cruz will be going over economic aspects of the country, and I will wrap it off with the role of the government in the economy. Now, without any further ado, here is Carla.
So once again, as just stated, my name is Carla Novoa, and I'm a business cultural analyst, and I specialize on the country of Brazil. So the points I'm going to cover today are I'm going to give you some information, background information on Brazil. I'm then going to talk about their business culture. I'm going to talk about their communication style. So background on Brazil, they're known as the Federative Republic of Brazil, and I'm not going to say that in Portuguese because I can't do it. And then it's the largest country in South America as well as the Latin American region, and it's the world's 5th largest country in terms of geographical area and population size, having a whopping 194 million people. Their capital is Brasilia, and the official language of Brazil is Portuguese. And their dominant faith is Roman Catholicism, and so they're actually the largest Catholic population in the entire world, so that's something to consider before doing business over there. Now, business culture. Brazil is seen as one of the hottest investment opportunities in the world simply because they have a very stable political system, a very stable currency, as well as vast mineral wealth. And this is what makes Brazil a must for companies with truly global ambitions. Now, Brazil also leads South America and Latin America in terms of infrastructure and technology, and the following are really what drives investors towards wanting to invest in Brazil. Now, the cons to Brazil and doing your business over there is that the Brazilian coast, you can find a lot of corruption over there, inflation, governmental inefficiency. So if you're going to be doing business on the coast of Brazil, it's very important to work with local accountants and lawyers, because other companies have found the use of middlemen to be very, very efficient in terms of running their company as smoothly as possible. Now, moving into the communication style. Aside from the business world, nobody in Brazil really speaks English, so it's very important maybe try to learn a few terms in Portuguese, because if you try to use Spanish, that's just a big no-no. I mean, in Brazil, they take great pride that they're the only country in Latin America that does not speak Spanish. And so if you try to speak Spanish to them, they see that as very culturally insensitive, so avoid using Spanish at all times. And communication, just like much of Latin America, is oral. They don't email each other or anything. They're all about going out to eat, mixing their personal life with work life, going out together, and their work schedule really lends itself for this, because their work schedule is like our schedule over here. It's like 8 to 5. However, they have a 2-hour lunch where they all go out together and eat and socialize, and that's how they have meetings, and that's how they socialize. Another thing is that they use very exaggerated body language and very strong eye contact. So as a foreigner, if you don't already have these qualities, it's very, very important that you try to adapt, because if you don't, you can be seen as rude or unfriendly, and they don't, it's better to try to work with them and try to be much like them. So with that being said, today I covered some background information on Brazil. I've talked to you about their business culture, and I've talked to you about their communication style. With that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Randy Patterson.
Hello everyone. Like Carla said, my name is Randy Patterson, and I'm a business consultant for St. Edwards and Friends, and I focus mainly on countries in South America and mainly Brazil, Today I will be talking to you guys about business geography in Brazil, and I really wanted to focus on the three main cities that most business transactions occur in. We have Sao Paulo, Porto Alegre, and the capital, Brasilia. To begin, Sao Paulo is called the Brazilian locomotive. This term kind of came about due to the fact that most of the business transactions and money kind of processing within this city is really the driving force of the Brazilian economy. It's number one as far as financial institutions and things like that are distributed throughout Brazil. Another very interesting part about Sao Paulo is that it really is the business sector. This is where we're going to get a lot of financial institutions. In fact, most headquarters for big established companies is located in Sao Paulo. In addition, like Carlos said, the east coast, the border of the ocean to Brazil, you can find a lot of corruption in there. So whenever you're trying to conduct business in this region, it is important to keep in mind to kind of keep yourself guarded, especially as a foreigner in this market. However, like I said, this really is the best city to do business in and also to start your business. Continuing on, we've got Porto Alegre. It's known for trade and mostly the exports. This being attributed to the fact that it's located near 5 major rivers that really connects this city to the rest of the country. In addition, not only to that, but the rest of South America. It is known for the number of exports that they're able to send out, but not only that, just the imports they can bring in. This is the best city for production. If you're wanting to branch out and kind of get to the manufacturing side of your company, this is the best place to do so. As you can see, it's a vast area. The city is enormous, so there really is a lot of potential here to kind of get your name established. In addition to that, they already do have a pretty diversified market as far as manufacturing goes, with a lot of textile production, but then also in shipbuilding, because they can bring in a lot of imports. You're going to have a wide selection of resources there. Continuing on to Brasilia, like Carlos said, this is the capital of the country, and as you can see from the picture here, it is a bit different than the other two cities. This is located in central Brazil, so it's not bordered by water or anything like that. And as you can tell, it looks like a very modern society. There's lots of parks, and this is where you're going to get, like in any other capital of a country, this is where you're going to get into like the politics, and it really is a political hub of Brazil. They have a big focus on communications and finance, and this is really a city where it holds in a lot of culture, not only in the business side, as Carlos spoke about, but as in everyday life. It is very heavily recommended that when doing business in the city, you start networking. Not only is this important just to become established within your company in Brazil and make a name for yourself, but also you never know when you're really going to need that helping hand, as to say, maybe not only in your business, but in how to conduct businesses in different parts of Brazil that I haven't covered, or in different countries of Brazil that do a lot of close operations. Like the other two cities where Sao Paulo is good to start your businesses, keep it running, this is a really good place to maybe send the legal side, maybe do some research, kind of get to know the people of Brazil. It's a really great starting place. Just to recap, I spoke about the three main cities and the attributes that differentiate themselves from one another and the really positive aspects of each city. With that being said, I'd like to hand off to Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Mejia, and I am a marketing consultant, and I've done some research on doing business with Brazil. And today I'm going to go over the market overview in Brazil, then I'm going to go into the market challenges, and then give you some of the best business opportunities within the Brazilian market. Starting off with the market overview, Brazil is Latin America's biggest economy and the 6th largest in the world. According to export.gov, it only grew 2.7% in 2011, and this slowed growth is due to reduced demand of exports from Europe and Asia. In 2011, the U.S. was Brazil's largest source of imports, followed by China, Argentina, Germany, and South Korea. Now, with its large expanding domestic market, wealth of natural resources, and stable democracy, like Carlos said, Brazil is a thriving destination for foreign investors. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Brazil ranked 5th among all countries in foreign direct investment inflows. Despite these bright prospects, however, Brazil remains a complicated place to do business. Some of the challenges that you will occur in Brazil are complex and expensive tax and labor environment, burdensome bureaucracy, costly credit, lingering corruption, and deep social imbalances. On the World Bank's Doing Business Index, Brazil ranks 127th among 183 countries on the ease of doing business. Now, Brazil has a large and diversified market that offers U.S. companies many opportunities to export their goods and services. Now, certain sectors of the Brazilian market that have experienced higher than average growth are air transportation, telecoms, oil and gas, and mining. Brazilian imports from the U.S. rose 25% to $19.2 billion in 2006, which is up 55% since 2002, with aircraft and raw cotton being the leading imports into Brazil from America. So as you can see, although there are market challenges with the complex system, it is very beneficial into doing business with Brazil. Today I covered the market overview, where you can see that Brazil is Latin America's biggest economy. Then I went into the challenges with the complex system, which you have to be careful about if you're doing business there. And then lastly, I talked about the opportunities with aircraft and raw cotton being the leading U.S. imports. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Guillaume.
Thank you, Stephanie. As Stephanie said, my name is Guillermo Cruz. I'm a business consultant specializing in economic aspects of Brazil. So today we're gonna have an overview of economic aspects of Brazil. We're gonna see the main industries in the market, and we're gonna recommend investments in that industry, why you should do business in that industry, and why you shouldn't. So first we're gonna have a quick overview of Brazil. Brazil has $2.2 billion US dollars of GDP. It's 40% of GDP in Latin America. Brazil is the largest emerging market. That means it's a profitable market for doing business. Unemployment rate has fallen from 10 to 5.0 in 2012. So that's a pretty good sign of an emerging. Brazil has the lowest growth right now because of the lack of investment, the lack of funds they have. So recently they have approved some policies to welcome foreign investments. We're going to pass to the second point of main industries. We're going to talk about agriculture first. Agriculture has 37% of Brazilian jobs. This industry by itself does $594 million in Brazil. This definitely is something that the government is going to support if you start doing business in agriculture. Logistics is our second main industry. Logistics and transportation and highly costly in Brazil because of the distances between each country. Brazil do a lot of business with China, with the European Union. It's highly costly to transport products between China and Brazil. So 40% of the total cost of a product is because of transportation. So we can see in the graph, Brazil is from the last country in the ranking position of logistics and transportation. We're going to see real estate. Real estate compared to the last year has had an increase of 200% in their prices. That's because of the crime and insecurity Brazilians have in their country. When a real estate company starts building houses in a certain zone, Brazilians can move there because of the safe of the place, but crime can also move there and Brazilians have to move out. So this is a very unpredictable industry to go and invest in. So raw materials is our last industry. Raw materials has been an industry that is hunger for funds. The raw materials industry, as we can see in 2006, they did a great investment, foreign investment. The U.S. did a great investment in 2006, and profits went out of the way. Now the U.S. tried that. Okay, they got profit, and then they take the money out. So then the market in the raw materials goes down. But as you can see, if you put some money in the world market, it's going to have the same effect as the U.S. investment inside. 11% of the GDP is because of the raw materials. So that's not much. If any economic crisis happens, 11% of GDP won't be affected for you. So our recommendation for investment, our last point. So we have seen that agriculture is our most strong recommendation for doing business in Brazil because the 37% of fertile territory is still available. So if you want to do it, definitely the government is going to support your businesses. Raw materials is our second recommendation. As I said, this industry hasn't been fully exploded. It needs funds to increase. Logistics and real estate are hard to do businesses. Logistics because of the distances and the cost. You can be, I mean, if you have a lot of capital, you will have less competitors, but it is highly risky. It's a highly risky investment. And real estate, as I recommend, it's just an unpredictable industry. That being said, we have looked at the overview of Brazil economic aspects. We have analyzed the main industries and how the agriculture and the raw materials can be a good investment, and how the logistics and real estate can be a risky investment. And now I'm going to pass it to Joe.
Thank you, Memo. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm Joe Benavides, founder of St. Ed's and Friends Consulting Group. And today we're going to cover 3 main points, starting off with the government's role in the economy, and then we're going to move on to a little bit more about background info about the country. And last but not least, we're going to cover the government's impact on the country's growth. Now, starting off, Brazil's government is very similar to that of the United States, being that they're both divided into the same 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial branches. And another word for the Brazil's government is the Federal Republic democracy. And both governments, as you know, are democracies. Now, a little bit of background info about the country. In 1964, the military took over and led to a dictatorship. And under this dictatorship, they passed an institutional act. And this act basically led to the controlling of many valuable industries within the country, which I'm going to cover in just a minute. However, in 1988, there was hope as a new constitution was brought into effect. And this constitution is the one that's instilled in today's government. And this basically brought in the government's powers. And that means that it has given businesses, both domestically and foreign, a chance to establish themselves in Brazil. Now, Brazilian politics is divided between internationalistic liberals and statist nationalists. And according to sociologist Marcelo Ridenti, the Liberal Party is for the expansion of foreign trade, while the statists are more for a private-owned, stabilized economy to where they can monitor whether it's fluctuating and doing well or not doing well. Orden e Progresso. Orden e Progresso is Brazil's motto, and it can be simply found on the country's flag. And for those who don't know what it means order and progress in Portuguese. And this is something that the government has definitely lived up to, and they take it very seriously as they play a very big role in the economy. However, before President Cardoso took over in office, the government played an even bigger role in the economy. As I mentioned earlier, they control many industries, including power generation, the mining of natural resources, and last but not least, the water supply. However, nowadays, the president has passed policies implementing robust and publicly available anti-corruption laws in order to end monopolies such as the ones that I just talked about. Now, the government has assisted both foreign and domestic organizations as they have strived so hard throughout the past years since coming out of dictatorship and turning into a democracy. And basically, the Brazilian society is demanding ethical business practices, and the government has tried the hardest to fulfill and meet the needs of the society. Now, Randall K. Edwards, a lawyer for a Brazilian client, said it best. As you can see up on the slide, it says, it will take 3 times as long to accomplish a business transaction in Brazil as in the US, and it will cost 3 times as much money, but you will make 3 times as much profit. Now, with that being said, today I've covered a little bit more about the government's role in the economy of Brazil, as well as a little bit of background info, and not to mention the impact that it's had on the country's growth. Now, I'm going to pass you over to Memo as he's going to wrap it up.
So to conclude our presentation, we heard Carla talk about the business culture, how to do business with Brazilian people. They prefer face-to-face business. We heard Riley talk about the geography in Brazil, how the 3 main cities are being developed and profitable. We heard Stephanie talk about the market overview and how those Brazil is described as an emerging market. We heard Joe talk about the policies and how Brazilian government is open opportunities for foreign investment. I talk about different economic aspects and the main industries that can be profitable and which one can be difficult. So we do recommend investing in Brazil. Of course, it's a very highly profitable market, but it is highly peaked. So if you're going to invest in Brazil, do it taking advantage of all the other situations and be aware of the risks. So thank you all for coming to our presentation. And do you have any questions?